Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Richards. Thank you so much for joining this morning. Um, Today we are talking about flex periods, taming the chaos. I often refer to flex time management, advisory period management, or enrichment, whatever you call these time periods, these activities, as one of the most complex things we do here at Minga is manage flex times, and it is one of the more involved things. And yeah, anytime you add this type of flexibility to the schedule, there's gonna create a little chaos. So there's a lot of fun in that. And obviously, personalized learning is, growing in popularity and really taking off. So I'm very excited to dive in. We have been investing over the last 24 months pretty steadily and continuously in our flex time module. Um, it will be a forever improving project as we learn more about personalized learning and as the experience with these types of solutions grows. But today we're gonna break it down and talk about it. So very excited to walk you through some of the not how our FlexTime module works and a little bit of a process and an overview on some best practices around running an effective and efficient and accountable FlexTime period. And with that in mind, we are going to dive right in. So number one, this is so frequently missed through the process of actually executing on your flex time or advisory period. At the very beginning, when the administrative team, or maybe through a committee or a group, we sit down and everyone defines really clear goals and expectations and outcomes, and that happens at the very beginning, and then it goes into a little magic box somewhere, and then it gets forgotten or it gets left behind along the way as everyone dives into planning these periods and these activities. And I mean, this is not just for flex time, but often for a lot of the big projects that we run at school or at our company here. Defining clear goals and the high level functionality of how this works at your school is not only so important and valuable at the very beginning of the process, and for all those folks that mentioned that they are in the planning phases right now of running Flex, but also the ones that are exploring doing this. When you go through this exercise, first off, really be clear about the purpose, because a lot of the way that you run this and the best practices around this are really gonna, stem from that clear purpose that you have. Is this for academic intervention? Is it for enrichment? Is it to help drive attendance and, increase engagement? Those objectives and being really clear on that is important. As from there, you can identify who's the target group. If this is for academic intervention, it might just be for, say, the 10 or 15% of your students that are really struggling. And that's where, is the group of students that will be participating in Flex. But it might also be for your entire student body. So, identify that target group, write these things down, create some pretty slides, like do something like this where this is all captured. Once we know the purpose and the target group, we can identify our outcome. What does success look like? So that, look, for those of you that are already running Flex, this is a lot of work. And for those of you that aren't currently running Flex, please take it from me and from everyone else on this call that is running Flex, this is a lot of work. You will invest a lot of administrative and teacher hours and time into the planning, the training, and the execution. So at the end of the year, having a really clear objective of what our outcomes are, what our expected outcomes are, and what success looks like is going to help you really value the return on all the work that you put in. And then I put scheduling on here too, because this is actually a really great early question. to ask yourself when you're building a flex time is, how are students getting allocated to different activities that are made available during the flex time period? There are kind of three main ways. So, we're very used to teacher assigned functionality, and that is that teachers will go in and say maybe every teacher is responsible for their homeroom, and they will go and assign students to flex activities based on student needs. Um, very, especially if we're looking to drive engagement, then student choice is probably going to be a big part of it, which means that now students can browse a list of options that are available to them, and they can choose where they want to go. And that works really, really great for things like enrichment, for things like social emotional learning. So students can, they have a lot of choice, and they're going to decide where they want to go, and that really helps drive that and drive that engagement, drive participation, drive attendance. And then lastly, there's the hybrid method, which is that usually administration or staff will assign students based on student needs. So that could be academic or behavior interventions. Those students are going to get assigned. And so let's say like somewhere between 10 and 25% of your students are assigned by teachers and administration to particular activities. The remaining 75 to 90% of the students have freedom of choice. And hybrid is probably what we see as the most common, but you might, slowly inch into that. And but being really clear on these things right out of the gate, and then very clearly communicating with everyone through the entire year. Keep this information available to you so you're always talking about, how this works and what our objectives are. So everyone is continuing to stay contained to that is really important. So I cannot stress this enough. If you take anything away from today and just review it with your team and then build out another slide that answers these questions. Okay, so let's get into the logistics of actually building a flex period and a flex schedule within. Oh, perfect. I see some Q&As coming up right here. I see a question from Dan, and Dan says, do we know of comprehensive high school somewhere that is currently doing this work well? And if so, would you be able to drop a name? Dan, that is an excellent question. I'll actually touch base on a slide. We have a handful of schools, and if you say, just to set some expectation of what large is, in the like 2,000 to 3,500 student realm, we have several dozen schools that I think are doing this really, really well. They're invested. And so we're going to share some of that information, and also, make some connections for people as well, because I think that getting that firsthand experience is super valuable. So, step number one, once you've defined, answered all those questions before, step number two, and this is part of the repeating steps that you'll do all year long, is we talk about a flex period. The language we use at Minga is two components. So the period is the time block where this flexing happens. And within that period are activities that teachers or staff make available as an option within the flex period. So the period is the time, and the activities are the options available within it. So, so step number one that we're going to do on a regular basis is create and schedule flex periods. There's a little bit of best practices here. Probably the most important, well, I guess all three of these are important. So first off, this is really valuable. We see a lot of schools that start with a flex period that might happen like right in the morning, or it's the last period of the day. And we see time and time again that this is not a very good time to schedule your flex period. So we talk about protected flex periods, which means fit it in between like the middle of the morning or the middle of the afternoon, so it has academic blocks or regular scheduled blocks on both sides of it. Don't do it before or after lunch, and don't do it at the beginning or the end of the day. That's kind of just best practices. We find that for participation and attendance, especially as you're building the culture within your school, it's best to have these protected, or it's very potential that you'll see your attendance drop off a lot. Um, the duration. So this is also a good one because a lot of people think, well, we're just dabbling into this. We don't want to make it too long because that's a lot of work. Um, for people to create these flexible activities. 45 minutes we see as the flex period sweet spot. So if you go longer, then yes, it's, your 60, 70-minute periods are hard for teachers to fill with dynamic activities every week. But if you go any shorter, the sort of chaos of the period, everyone getting to where they're going, especially as you're building this culture, is going to eat a lot into that effective time of the actual period itself. And so you won't get the return out of it. So think of that 45-minute window as a really, really great sweet spot. And then from a frequency perspective, we see schools that flex every day, have a flex period every day, and we even have a handful of high schools in the southeast that flex every block. Everything's flex. It's flex madness. We don't recommend that. Start with 1 to 2 flex periods per week. 2 is a great number, a Tuesdays and a Thursdays or a Monday and a Thursday, something like that. And but if you have the capacity to only do 1, that's great too. Anything less than weekly though, and once again, you might not get that return again. You still have to do the same amount of training and planning if you do it once a month. So doing it once a week seems to be that great place to start at the minimum spot to start. And we see lots of really great success with 2. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to create those periods. And then in Minga, your first thing, of course, this may go without saying, but you're gonna really want to make sure from an accountability perspective that you have identified someone that owns this. They are your flex wizard. And accountability for the success of your flex period is going to roll right up to that person. And so this person's skill sets are going to be an organizational wizard. They are going to be comfortable with data. They're going to enjoy spreadsheets and tables. They are going to be clear but firm communicators, and also like really, really love the A word, and that A word is accountability. That's going to be the type of person so that does really, really well with managing these flex periods. And that person's role, the first thing they'll do is they're going to come into Minga and they are going to create the flex periods, the blocks of time, and schedule the blocks of time that these flex times happen. And within Minga, you'll see like these will show up. You can create these for the whole year first, and then you can just sort of make them available 1 or 2 weeks in advance for people to start, administrating. But obviously we're typically looking at these at the same time. And when they go ahead and they create these, that is when you start to set up the permissions of how students and staff can interact with these periods. So you'll see these, this is a view within Minga, this little slide right here. And you'll be able to view the period. Staff and teachers will see these periods. Students will see the periods that you've made available to them. And then at any time we can lock these periods as, globally. So it's locked for everything, locked for teachers and locked for students. And these locks, when it's unlocked, it means that people can make changes. And when it's locked, it means that no more changes. So usually you're going to think about this is that like we make a period available. We unlock it for teachers. That allows teachers to come in and add their activities to that period. And then we unlock it for students. And that allows, depending on how you do that scheduling, so if it's unlocked for teachers, teachers can also add periods and start assigning students to activities. And then when you unlock it for students, any available students that are still free are able to then go select activities. So, and then maybe 24 hours before the period actually happens, you lock it all back down. And that way it's fixed now. And everybody clearly knows the next day already where they're going. So it's not madness right before the period starts or right at the beginning of the period. And people are all of a sudden selecting. You really want to have those things done and locked in advance. And it can be, say that morning, if the period is in the afternoon, it can be locked there. But you want to have that lock, at least a few hours before the period begins. So there's a lot of clarity for teachers and students on who's going where. That's going to help the whole student movement component of this when the period starts. And a new feature that we have here are teacher activity deadlines, and that gives you the ability to set deadlines for when teachers need to have their activities available in the flex schedule as well, I think. But this part's relatively straightforward. It's pretty easy to create a period, and it's pretty easy, within Minga, everyone sees really clearly when those periods are. And we also make it really clear to everyone, and we'll see that as we get into activities, the actions that need to be taken by students and staff when those periods are created and unlocked and available for engagement. So step number 1, we create and schedule our periods. And you can see best practices here. These periods are scheduled kind of smack in the middle of the morning, and almost these are 49-minute periods, so kind of right along the lines of those best practices. So once our periods are created, then step number, of course it's empty, so there's nothing happening in this period at this point. So step number 2 is that teachers are going to go in and make activities available. These activities can be, all sorts of different things. And here you're going to put some ideas in here. Obviously, the best practices around this, it's pretty straightforward, but you want to have good descriptions. So it's really clear what the outcome of the activity is, what's the point of the activity, what students can expect from that activity. And they're going to be, you can have a wide range. We let you categorize the activities as well. So some of these are going to be makeup exams, and some of them might be enrichment opportunities, and some of them might be, for students that qualify, a really fun, a floor hockey game or some other nature hike. You can have things all over the map on what these are and categorize them accordingly. This is the first part of where the magic happens in your flex time. So when a teacher comes in, first off, teachers can create a bunch of templates, so they don't need to go through and create these from scratch every single time. They can come in and they can say, if I'm a math teacher, I can have my math makeup exam template, and it's already completed and ready to go, and then I can just drag and add that to flex periods, as I want to. And then you can always create them on the fly as well. If you have something unique that you want to offer this time, I can create an activity really easily. But a couple of valuable best practices in creating these periods. Communication is key. It's communicating like how our flex works and what the objectives are, but every week communicating very clearly to teachers, admin, and students, what's going on this week. What do we need you to do? And then who hasn't done those things? Back to the flex time manager, who hasn't done those things yet, so that we can make sure they are done. It is all about clearly setting expectations and then maintaining a high level of integrity and accountability through when you're running these flex periods. Start strong, hold people accountable right out of the gate, and just make sure these things are being run. So in this case, the best practices around creating, adding activities to periods. Of course, teachers create their own activities, add good names and descriptions. There you see a select from your activity types as well. That will make it easier for students to browse based on the categories that they want to look at. You put your location in so that it's very clear where people need to go for this activity. And then here's a few of the really important parts. you can make the number of seats available for this activity. So in this case, there's only 20 seats available, and that means that it will only let students sign up to 20 seats, and then this activity will no longer be available to new students. Very important, especially to ensure that obviously periods don't get overfilled, but this is also important to make sure that we get even distribution across, campus for students participating in lots of different activities. If you put on, someone runs an activity that's like movie day, well, everyone's going to sign up for that, and you might not want that. So putting these seats is really important. You can see here some options. Teachers can also enable or disable the ability for students to register for this activity. If this is disabled, that means the only way a student ends up in this is if they are assigned to the activity by a staff member or an admin or a teacher. That would be a good option for, say, like a detention or an intervention. So we don't want students signing up with it just because that's silly. So, in that case, you would turn off student registration. But of course, this will be dependent on your registration method that you selected when you built your Flex program. And this one, very valuable. Select who can register for this activity. If I'm running a math tutoring session, I probably only want to select or make this available to my math students. So we use lists very extensively. We roster your class lists automatically. Teachers can dynamically create other lists of students. We create lists from groups and from athletics teams and from clubs. There's lists of all sorts of students in here. You can very easily set up lists to restrict who's able to register for this. And this is really going to help you a lot through the process of making sure students are going to the right places. So that's a very important one to take advantage of. Sometimes things will be available to everyone, but really important in this case to select those lists and set up restrictions and registration restrictions. So teachers go through, they create this activity. You can clone activities. New features too. Teachers can clone activities. That's new. You can also have teachers that have or activities that have multiple teachers now, and that's new. And one of the most commonly requested features. So you can actually have multiple teachers here that own this activity, and that comes into play for some very interesting things, but also lets multiple teachers manage and take attendance and do that other stuff that comes with this activity as well. So we've got the Flex period, we created the activities, we've added activities, and now on the Flex time management dashboard, you'll see a list of all the activities that are available for this period. And this is a great at-a-glance dashboard. From inactivity management, you can see the registration limits. So this would be 20. This is currently has 20 out of a maximum of 38 students signed up for the office retake. And we can see clearly who the teacher is and what location it is. And even from this dashboard, it's an easy place where teachers can do check-in, that's attendance, take attendance and stuff like that as well. But really easy here, also from the FlexTime dashboard, you'll see this all in a tile view. That's really easy to take a look at from a period perspective. And at a glance, obviously, this is into that accountability to make sure that check-in and stuff like that is happening. Flex permissions are very important here as well, and especially when it gets into assigning and registering students, that Flex permission is really important. So now that we have our period and now we have it's full of activities and all sorts of things that can happen, now we do the student management part. So from a permissions perspective, administrators can assign students to activities. Teachers and staff can assign students to activities as well, but they cannot override administrators, and they can't override each other. So if little Bart was assigned to an intervention by an administrator, then teachers will not be able to move that student. If a teacher has assigned Bart to something, then another teacher won't be able to override that either and take that student. but an admin can always override everyone. So if two teachers have a conflict of a student, then an administrator can resolve that conflict. Um, and then lastly, of course, students cannot override teachers or administrators. So once a student is assigned to something, they will be unable to register themselves to something. Um, so that that may sound a little complicated, but in practice, it's actually pretty straightforward and pretty easy to see how it goes. Um, and conflicts don't happen very often, but of course, the most important ones is that students, can't override their teachers. So once they're registered, once they're assigned to something by a teacher or an admin, that's just going to show up for them for that flex period. Hey, you're going here, and it gives them the location and the time and everything like that, really easy for them. So for anyone that is already using Minga, or for everyone that's new or familiar with Minga, this is some of the very exciting things that are coming up that are happening for us here. First, the big announcement for everyone here is that, and this is an if you know situation, but flex time for teachers is all available now in our My Class dashboard. So everything, registration, taking, checking in attendance, all that stuff is all done from My Class now in Minga. This is a huge addition for us, and we're super excited to launch this. This has been a big part of, completing our sort of My Class launch. And so teachers, for all intents and purposes, teachers never leave My Class now. They basically, drop into My Class at the beginning of the day, and they're doing everything, all their management for the day, hallway management, behavior management, points and rewards, communication, and now flex time, all within My Class. So it just makes it really easy for teachers to use. It's kind of 1 or 2 clicks for everything that needs to happen. And it's all, integrates attendance and availability and all that stuff into one place. And so we're very excited for this. But we also have added a lot of other very new features to this process and the whole student assignment process. No party groups are now available and active within flex time. So that means if we have 2 students that we don't want together in the same activity, you can set up flex time so that it will respect no party groups that are configured. You can have no registration lists, which means now teachers, not only can you create a restriction for which students are available for my activity, but you can also create restrictions for students that I don't want in my activity. Another very one of the top requested features. And so if this student is causing problems in my activities, I can restrict them from being able to register. And then we have the ability to set up registration deadlines, both for teachers and for students. And so all that stuff, all those lockings can be done automatically now. So, and another really big feature, huge feature for us too, is this is a little bit of the flex time administrator feature, but now for any like one of the big challenges that comes in flex is that say 70% or 50 or 60% of the students are assigned or registered, but now I have this 40% of the students left over, and this is a real thing. We talk about this a ton when we're building best practices. And if you've got a 2,000 student school, that's a lot of students. I've got 800 students now that I need to figure out what to do. Now you can define homeroom locations for all of your students. This can also be done automatically through class rostering, and you can default and automatically assign all those 800 remaining students back to their homerooms, back to their homeroom teacher, whatever activity their homeroom teacher. It gives you the ability to override seat limits. So it forces those students all to a location so that on your flex time, every student has a home and knows exactly where during that flex time period they're supposed to be going. No one's left unregistered. And it also can really help to put the onus back onto their homeroom teachers to ensure that students have made selections or have homes selected for them so that all these students don't get lumped back into their homeroom activity. And Aaron says, when you take attendance, does it flow into our normal attendance program? And in this case, it's Aries. Or do we have to submit attendance twice? Great question, Aaron. Very pertinent. How you set up attendance for flex periods is very important. And it does, because obviously most student information systems will not support this flexible attendance program. So Aaron, the short answer to your question is you'll take attendance in Minga and then you'll import that attendance into Aries. So you're not taking attendance twice. You're going to take it in one place. Depending on your SIS and the nuances, some SISs don't make that import, but Aries does. The import with Aries is pretty straightforward. So short answer, Aaron, is you'll take it in Minga and then import it into Aries. And you won't do that, of course. Your attendance secretary will do that import, or it will be done automatically, one of the two, depending on your Aries admin configuration. Okay, so we've done the big work has now been done. We have created and scheduled the periods, made activities available, and now all of our students have a home. So this is all done before the flex period actually happens. And then we've locked this flex period down at least a few hours before the flex period starts so that everyone can see really easily in Minga when their activity is. And for students, we'll see that, here's the options where students can assign or register for things. And so they'll see this right on their Chromebook or on a mobile device or on an iPad, whatever it is. This is all very easily available for them, but it's right in their Chromebook. They're going to see on their schedule the upcoming flex periods and things that they've been assigned or registered for. They see those right away, and they see where they're going, what the time is and where they're going. And then here's one coming up on Saturday where they're going to academic Saturday school, but they still have the freedom to register. So really clear for students, really clear for staff on what's taking place and where they need to be and what their next action is. And if this student was then to click on the register button, that pop-up will show them the activities that are available to them for that period. They can select one and register. While it is unlocked, students can also make changes to that registration. So that's important to understand. That's another good reason why we want to lock that at least a few hours before. The name of the game here is ease of use and clear communication. So we need to always be making it really clear to students and staff, if there's an action they need to take, like in this case, they need to register for this upcoming Saturday. We want them to do this. Or if it's a teacher that needs to make an activity available for a period, we want that to be really clear to them as well. And in Minga, we'll use notifications to push that when it's getting to those dates for them as well. So, and then once all that's done on the admin dashboard, of course, we want to make it really, and I'll pop in here to an admin dashboard. So here's like an administrator's dashboard that you're going to be looking at the flex time, and you can see really clearly, what activities are available, but also at a high level, how many students are registered for activities and how many I have left remaining. And this would be the case where you'd click on that not registered, and I would pop in, and now I could figure out what I want to do with those unregistered students. And that's, I'll get to highlight that feature again, where we can now automatically push those students back to their homeroom teacher so that this number, your best practice is that this number is 0 a few hours at a minimum when you lock that period. So at a minimum a few hours before. So now that now it's the period, we've locked it down. Everyone knows where they're going. We come up. It's time to take attendance and get everyone checked in. This can work just like it does in your other classes. Teachers can take attendance based on both positive or negative based attendance. The really important part here is that we make it really easy for the teacher to take attendance, because we, of course, just pop up in my class the students that are registered or assigned for that activity. So they know exactly who's supposed to be here. Some schools are going to self-check-in, so students can now, you can drive this back to the students where they check in they can either scan in with their ID when they come into class, or you can have a kiosk at the class that students can self-check in when they come in. And now the reporting and data around accountability is so important. So for a teacher, if it's the teacher running the activity, they're gonna pop into my class. They're gonna see this highlighted for them on their schedule that there's a flex period today. The activity they have in the flex period, they just click on that. They drop right into my class. That's going to show them all the students that are assigned and registered for that. If students are on hall passes, it'll pop up right away, because that would be a reason why a student might not be in that class in that activity at that moment. And then you can either select all and do negative base attendance, or start from an empty and do positive base attendance. Select the students that aren't here or are here, and then check them in. And a brand new feature, couple new features here, of course. New feature, this is all being done in my class. It makes it really, really easy. Another brand new feature, though, is that you can now have the option to check students in, so just mark them as present, but also a new feature, the ability to mark them as tardy. So now we can also mark those students as tardy, so that information gets properly integrated and uploaded into your student information system. So really easy here. And then once you're in here, of course, if you're doing behaviors, if you're doing hallway management as part of Minga as well, the teacher's living in the same spot. Now, all the students for that flex activity are in my class already. And if I'm, if Levi wants to go to the bathroom, I'm just clicking here to give Levi a hall pass to send him to the bathroom. And then if Caleb was helping out a student and I want to give him a praise recognition, I can do that right from here as well. I'm just going to click on Caleb and select the behavior, the praise that I want to give him, and assign that as well. So makes the overall management within that activity, that group of students that's in that activity, really, really easy, and just brings all the other functionality with Minga right to the forefront for teachers, and helps simplify that number of tabs that they have open there on their Chromebook. And now that it's done, so that's it. I mean, that's flex time in a nutshell, running through the best practices. We created the periods, added activities, managed our students, took attendance, and now we've got data for days. So accountability, back to that accountability, so important. Little real-time question from Sarah. Can students see other students' assignments? No, Sarah, students don't see other students' assignments. So they can see options that are available to them, but can't see anything else. And most often, I'm curious, maybe if you throw in a follow-on your, if you want that or don't want that, but normally our best practices are, we don't want students to see other assignments. We want them to make the choices that are best for them and not just go wherever their friends are going. So, which is usually what happens when they can see it. So teachers and admins, of course, can see everyone's assignments. Okay, perfect. I see that now. You don't want to listen. Yeah, exactly. So now that we have this, of course, we can see a whole bunch of really interesting things here, but you can generate reports now, so that at the end of, let's say at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, and you want to understand the amount of time that, the amount of flex instruction that students received, that's really easy. You can do participation reports, attendance reports, all this data is available very easily through reporting. This is generally made available to the administrators or the flex time administrators. You can look at your tardy and your tardiness data, and also automatically assign points. If that can be a really great point if you're using points and rewards in Minga to help incent students to participate properly, is that you can actually automatically assign points now for when students are registered, or check-in for their activity. So if you're doing self-check-in, now students are going to get some of those points, and that can really help too. So quick question from Sarah. Sarah says, can teachers or admin locate a student by searching for that student? So absolutely. Sarah, we make it really easy through the student scroll or you can scan a student as well, to scan their ID card, and it's going to pop up and show them where they're supposed to be during that flex period. So what often happens is, this is the sneaky student play. Bart and Milhouse walk into a flex activity together and they both try to check in. And of course, Bart's supposed to be there, but Milhouse is supposed to be somewhere else. When Milhouse tries to check in, it's going to pop up and show you where Milhouse is supposed to be. So that makes it really easy to send him on his way to the right place for his flex time activity. Back to that accountability, making it easy for the teacher. And a teacher can then also look up a student right from the student search and see really easily what flex activity they're supposed to be in during that period as well. David has a question. Can students be assigned to an advisory homeroom automatically each day? So yeah, David, you can use that homeroom assignment to automatically assign people to like a default location. It's kind of it's usually their default homeroom. So, and then if you want to get into the habit of assigning students to the same activity on a regular basis that's not their homeroom, you can use lists to do that. So you can create the list of students for an activity and have them automatically assigned to that activity on a regular basis. Hopefully that answers your question. Just a few things here again. I mean, we are seeing upwards. I had a survey of about 2,500 high schools, and 50% of them had some type of flex implemented. Not all of it was as advanced as, say, these flex periods, because the flex can come in lots of different changes. But we are seeing these experiences for personalized learning, student choice and agency, to drive attendance and behavior and participation, as well as to meet more complex MTSS or RTI requirements. We are seeing, this personalized learning and flex periods really skyrocketing right now. So kind of back to the beginning, be really clear about, why you're running a flex and how it's going to run. Communicate that regularly through the year. Keep it simple and hold everyone accountable. That's so important to get this started out of the gate. Hold the bar really high and find that flex manager person. They're going to be your rock star for this, and they're going to be scheduling at almost at an OCD level. It's like they're going to be like schedule organizational ninjas. That's going to be that right person. Another great question from David here. When scheduling the flex period, can that be scheduled for the entire school year? Absolutely, David. We do tend to see like maybe 2 or 3 months in advance is a nice little sweet spot, because things could change semester to semester, but you can certainly go in and build those in for the whole year. And then teachers can go and bulk create their activities for the year. The reason sometimes you might not want to do that, though, is you might want a teacher. It might be an easy way for the teacher to go and just put the same activity in for the whole year as well. Whereas you might want them to be thinking a little bit more over the next, say, 3 to 4 weeks. What are the things that my students really need right now? And I'll make those available. So it's probably not necessarily best practice to do the whole year scheduling, but it is very possible. Aaron has a question. Are you able to set a period outside of your school time for teachers who offer after-school tutoring? Can parents see that their students are signed up? So the answer to the first question, absolutely. We are not bound by the school schedule. So you can do this for after-school activities and clubs, before school interventions, Saturday schools, all this stuff we are not bound by the schedule in any way, shape, or form. Can parents see that their students are signed up? So we are adding some additional notifications, push notifications to parents, but this is not available through a parent portal yet to students. So they wouldn't necessarily see that. The students see it, admin and teachers see it, and we are putting in some additional notifications. But I think that the truest answer is that parents wouldn't see that they're signed up at the moment, but you could add some push notifications or text messaging notifications coming that will push that notification to the parent that a student's been signed up for something, say on a Saturday. So we're seeing a lot of really great really great feedback and response, academic and attendance improvement, getting student buy-in and agency, and also the flexibility for teachers to run support, because of course this can be very supportive to teachers, so they're not having to do as much support out of class schedule time or out of school schedule time. So, long story short, I think this is just that we're going to see flex periods and personalized learning experiences are here to stay, and we're probably going to see them growing in popularity. For those folks that had questions about connecting with some of the schools that are doing this, Anne is a perfect example of a scheduling and organizational ninja. We have a group of these schools and administrators. DJ is another one, organizational ninja, and just running really, really great flex activities and periods. We are very happy to connect you all together. Please reach out to your customer success manager, or you can just default into support@minga.io. If you want to send an email in, and we will make sure we make those connections for you with some of the masters that are doing this so well at their schools to get best practices and learn a little bit more. With that, I think our time is up. So thank you so much for joining today. We really look forward to learning more. I hope you got what you needed out of this. If you would like to learn more, you can book a demo here. That will take you to an account manager. But one way or the other, please don't hesitate to reach out. And we would love to talk to you more about your flex period, what's working, what's not working, and how we can help. So really appreciate all your time today, everyone. Have a wonderful, Wednesday. And thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy morning and joining us today. Have a wonderful day.